Welcome to a special edition of Veterans Voice. I'm Ted Robertson. Veterans Voice presented by USAA and comes to you from the Optum Podcast studio here on the campus of Mount Carmel Veterans Service Center in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Our bi-weekly cybersecurity heads up with Blake Schwank. Blake and Colorado Computer Support, the exclusive technology providers for the Veterans Voice. We cannot thank you guys enough for the partnership. And Blake, we're taking a little bit of a different direction today because it's always worth it to have the discussion with your team, your staff. Nara Vance, Army vet, project manager for you, been with you for more than 7 years. And we've talked about your team, how stable they are. You said you're averaging about 5 years for a member of the team to be with you. Today, we are all about what happens when you take off the uniform and you go to work in the civilian sector.
Yeah, and it's interesting because about a third of our staff is our veterans. We're coming up on 30 employees. We have about 10 veterans. We just brought on recently 2 Navy guys. So it's interesting hiring these guys to come work for me because I've had different perspectives of it. You know, it started off, I was a Air Force brat. My dad's a class of 60 Air Force Academy graduate who got out after 25 years as an 06. And as a colonel joining the civilian world, I got to see the sort of the shock he went through trying to work with people in the normal civilian workforce. And so he did that. Worked at a couple different companies for a couple years, and then ended up finding a job back at the Air Force Academy, working for the Association of Graduates, which was a better fit for him because it was around a culture that he knew and he grew up with. And then after I got out after 10 years, it was a little bit of an interesting change, you know, because all of a sudden, you know, I'm used to going just to, you know, the clinic to get health care. It didn't cost anything, didn't have to think about it, and getting out and then, you know, going to work for a civilian company, learning those changes. And then as we grew, I started hiring veterans. And so I got to see how they would adjust coming out. Everything from, we have people that have put in, you know, 10, 15 years. And we also, one of our more recent ones was a 21-year-old who spent 4 years in the Marines, and she was, you know, green to just work in general. So all she had known was the Marine Corps. So it's been fun to watch those transitions. Nara joined us 7 years ago. And how long had you been out at that point, Nara?
I got out in 2004. So I'd been out for a while, but for a good 6 years, I was a civilian contractor attached to Army units. So I had a little bit more experience. And then I was an Army wife. So I've kind of done the full gamut.
Oh, and we've talked about mil spouses before. We like to hire mil spouses too, because they understand the challenges that the military goes through. What was your biggest challenge getting out, Nara? What was the biggest shock?
I guess there's so many, you know, like maybe the biggest shock is kind of probably healthcare. It's changed a lot over, you know, the last few decades. But just, you know, not being able to just like hop in a sick call, and, you know, having to know what your plan is, having to know what your copays are, or, you know, what else you might have to, you know, pay after you get seen. It's kind of a shock factor.
So you were a contractor, and then you also taught for the Wounded Warrior Foundation as well, right?
Yeah, the Wounded Warrior Project, I was just doing some substitute teaching there for their A+ classes. I did a little bit more work with soldiers as well in that capacity.
Nora, you've covered a lot of territory here, from military spouse to the shock of getting out of your uniform and walking out into the world on day one, and you're going to go to work in the civilian sector. Even though you did spend some time with a DoD contractor, the culture there is one thing, but now here you are in the IT space and cybersecurity space, and you're working for a fellow veteran. You did talk about, it's very different in terms of just instant and easy access to services and other things like that. There had to have been some other culture shocks for you as well.
As far as culture shocks, finance, you know, getting everything sorted there, you know, having a vehicle and insurance, life insurance, paying for your own life insurance, all these good plans, going to financial planners, getting that assistance. I would say, some of the biggest help is organizations like Mount Carmel. They understand what you're going through, and they're there to assist. And then I had the fortune of working with veteran-owned organizations like Colorado Computer Support. So they just understand, and it's a little bit easier that way. I mean, I've also worked for non-veteran-owned organizations. I did a $10 an hour call center job before I got here too, and that was eye-opening. Hey, here you gotta take your break whenever we want you to take your break. And people are in charge of you. At least they don't run your life anymore, so that's kind of nice.
Not your whole life, but they run your day, right?
Yeah, they do run your day.
Yeah, the other thing you talked about, in the military, everything is structured, and they provide all of those services to you, and you have easy places to go. One of the big challenges getting out is nobody's telling you what to do every day, and you're basically responsible for yourself. And I think that is, like Nara said, where Mount Carmel comes in, where other organizations come in to help try to sort that out, insurance or healthcare. The other thing is just general questions. One of the things I like is, in watching it in action around our company, is the peers. When you work with a company that has a larger population of veterans, that they help each other out and guide each other, and especially the younger ones that need some help on how to do things. I know Nara's helped. We've got some older guys that that pitch in and advise. And I think, to me, I enjoy having fellow veterans around that kind of, we've got some common background. Not that I don't like our civilian employees who've never been in the military. We have awesome people, but I think that it's we've got a shared background at some point. Even though someone may have been in the Marines or Navy and I was in the Army, there's still something there that makes it a little bit easier adjustment, I think, when you come out to go join a company like that.
That military experience that so many of your employees have has to really help your team stay closely knit. There's the bond that you form because you've all been through the trials of boot, and you've been through the whole regimented lifestyle. Everything's laid out for you pretty much.
There's that, but then when they get out, it is a little bit of a change too, because you're not having to say it on both sides. So it's the young guy coming out, and you're going to work for a company. You don't, you want to jump up and go, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, go do it. That's not the case in the civilian world. There is, the leadership in a civilian organization isn't just, it's not the same thing as a sergeant major or first sergeant saying it or some colonel saying it that's directing you to go do a task. You can actually question. You can ask why. Mm-hmm. You can ask for their reasoning behind it. It's not just, hey, go out and police the parking lot.
Nora, what was the work that you did in the military that has brought you to a place in your life where you're now basically in logistics?
Yeah, I was a 33 Whiskey, which is it's a Sunset MOS. I think it became 35 Tango eventually, and the title is kind of crazy, but basically we were technicians. We fixed anything from component level repair like Radio Shack stuff to computer systems in MI, and then I worked on unmanned aircraft systems, so including like data links, engines, all that kind of stuff. So the experience varied there, but as far as applying it to the IT world, and my positions at CCS have changed a lot through the years. I came on as a tier 1 technician, getting certifications through the Wounded Warrior Project, helping out a little bit too, a lot of it actually, getting my A+, my Security Plus, my Network Plus, assisted in that, because it's not a direct translation of the work. The civilian sectors and the way that businesses work and require IT services is immensely different from how we service IT in the military, especially for an MSP, since we do so many different things. The military is a little bit more specialized most of the time. Wasn't necessarily the case in my upbringing there, since we worked on so many different things. But typically, I mean, you just work on this radar system, or you just work on this, UAV system or whatnot. And so some of the guys we've been getting through the door have been, like they're just technicians. They get a lot of good troubleshooting work, not necessarily computer, like servicing civilian sector VPNs and all sorts of, other technical stuff, email stuff that we require every day in the business world. It's not, like I said, not a direct translation of what we did in the military.
There are that soft skill set and the leadership abilities. The abilities to be a good follower is critical as well, is it not, Blake?
It is. It's a different type of leading and following than you get in the military, but you come out with a bit more respect. You come out with, a bit more can-do attitude. You come out with, you've already been through the hardest things you're going to do in your life, even if it's just boot. But, Nara spent a couple, rounds over in the Middle East. Multiples of our people have, our guys that were in submarines, right? Your civilian day is never going to be as bad as, some of the days you spent in the military. And you made it through that. And I think that's a huge benefit to, from a leadership standpoint, and from a, like you said, following of suck it up. It can't be that bad, right?
Nara, anything you want to add?
Yeah, absolutely. I got to agree with Blake. I mean, in addition, the camaraderie, that collaborative effort, knowing, even though we might have had different experiences while we're in, we also experienced some of the same things. We can link and just, be the same on those parts. So we have something that we can agree on.
Yeah. And I think that brings a lot, even if it doesn't correlate exactly to what a company does. Like Nara said, our two latest guys were electronic technicians in the Navy. There is nothing, well, there's probably something, we're using normal computers, but there's nothing in my office like is on a ship, right? And so, but the skills that they have, the troubleshooting, the logical thinking, the training that they've had in the military of having to work on different things is a, brings us a lot of skills. Then we can bolt on the other things that we need to teach them. How do you take what you learned to do being an electronics technician in the Navy? Now let's add on, how you do a computer in the civilian world, how you do a computer in a hospital versus a ship.
It's all about the aptitude.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the ability to adapt to any situation, and you definitely get your fair share of that in the military, but being able to adapt to any situation definitely helps you when you get outside, because you're going to just be hit with whatever sometimes, especially in IT. You just got to roll with the punches, learn on the fly, and being able to adapt can help you in any field.
So adaptive thinking, multitasking, good ability to lead, a good ability to follow. You've now put Nara in a setting where she can actually ask questions about what she's being told to do. And that is her learning and growing and expanding and doing better for you day by day by day. So 7 years later, here she is helping to keep the operation going as a project manager. Let's look back in the last couple minutes we have together. I want to do two things. I want to look back at getting out 20 years ago versus getting out today. And Nora, what advice you would give somebody transitioning out, taking that uniform jacket off for the last time and stepping out in the civilian world. So Blake, 22 years, Colorado Computer Support's been up and running. Nara, 20 years ago, you got out of the service. In that time frame, I'm not even sure there were transitional assistance panels. Were there?
Yeah, they had some stuff going on. I mean, they taught us how to, update our resume, do a resume. I think we could probably do some mock interviews. I don't know if I went to any of those, but yeah, there was out processing, that you had to go through at that time. But I would say, as far as advice goes for anybody getting out right now, I would just say be open like to help. A lot of us sometimes close ourselves off. There's a lot of people right now who have a lot of PTSD and things of that nature, and there's a lot of people going through the same things, and joining these kinds of services where you can get together with other veterans, especially here in Colorado Springs. We have so many opportunities. Just be open, take that hand. It's there. There's so many services.
Yeah, and this community was presented with all of these problems over all of these years with 5 bases around, and it responded. It rose to the challenge very nicely. I agree with the two of you. We're very fortunate to have Mount Carmel Veterans Service Center. The whole idea was hatched about 8 years ago, and now 6 years later, here we are, and a full range of transitional and employment services. That's Mark Smith and his crew at T&E here at Mount Carmel, among behavioral health and all of the other resources that organizations like this offer. And you're right, Nara, there are several of them. They're all great organizations. The idea is to get the veteran from out of the uniform into civilian life, do it as smoothly and as easily as possible, address the mental health concerns if they're there, and funnel those folks off to veteran-friendly employers who understand the lingo, if you will. They call that cultural competency. In other words, it's that language you speak as one veteran to another to help you get through the transition and start a good career path in life. Blake?
No, and that's a good point. And I think, especially working in a company like ours where it's, there's, 2/3, non-veterans and 1/3 veterans, it's a good mix to learn how to do that communication and fit in. And, I was thinking back as, I grew up, as a 25-year Air Force brat, most of my life was on the Air Force Academy. So I was surrounded by the military. I did ROTC. I went right into the Army, spent 11 years in the Army, got out, came back here. And there was nothing like what you guys provide. So we got out in 99 and ended up finding a job with a software company that went down in the .com bust. And so, the military background, everything was foreign to me joining the civilian world. And then the military background, though, when that .com bust happened, I didn't just stop and go, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. Put some of that, military background to work and just kept showing up. Started the business. I had no idea what I was doing starting a business back then, but I knew that I had to keep showing up every day and keep moving forward to do something, right? To go find something, keep fighting to build something. And now we're here 22 years later. I had no idea what I was going to do, but we made it work.
Here it is. And here's Nara. Nara, what a treat to meet you.
Thanks, Ted. I really appreciate being here today. Whenever I can help, get any word out of, I've volunteered at the library before. I just really like helping out other veterans because we have all kind of been through it.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you guys are doing here because when I got out, there was no Mount Carmel. We had the transition assistance program, but basically that, like Nara was saying, that was resume writing and mock interviews, and that was it. And then you come back to CONUS and you're like, oh, what do I do? So you guys are doing a great job, and you help in pretty much all aspects of what veterans need in a civilian world, right?
That's the aim, and it's growing and expanding all the time. Wherever there are folks like you, Blake, and you, Nara, to help fuel this mission and to help reach back and give these veterans a helping hand, we just love the partnership. We can't thank you enough.
Yep, same here. Thank you, Ted.
Nara, last word today?
Like I said, just everyone, please be open to help. Everybody give a little bit of grace. I think we can all use that in our current social, cultural climate that we have. If, we can just be a little bit nicer, just be a little bit more easy. We're all kind of going through our own struggles. So just giving yourself grace, giving other people grace. And I think that'll go really, really far with a positive outlook.
Nara Vance, thank you so much for your service, for being here today, for offering the gift of that advice of yours to fellow veterans transitioning out or in the civilian workforce and looking for a place to land and a way to get there. Project manager for Colorado Computer Support, the exclusive technology provider for Veterans Voice, Mr. Blake Schwank, CEO and founder 22 years ago, wasn't sure what he was going to do, and here he is today running a successful company.
Thanks, Ted. Some of it seems like a blur.
That's a lot of ground between then and now. You got a YouTube channel out there.
We do. So Colorado Computer Support has its own YouTube channel. We have about 400 videos up there, tech tip videos, just basic how-to videos, some cybersecurity videos. We also are very active on LinkedIn and Facebook. So if you want to learn about some IT stuff, if you're looking for work and you want to meet some of the team, you can go out there and watch some of our videos and see what we're all about.
That's awesome stuff. And again, it's on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Colorado Computer Support. Thank you so much, Blake. We appreciate your partnership and everything that you do.
Thank you, Ted.
I'm Ted Robertson. You've been listening to a special edition of Veterans Voice. In fact, our bi-weekly cybersecurity heads up. We'll be back in 2 weeks with Blake and who else? You never know. Thank you both very much for all you do.